Hello, all. I hope you are all had a productive and enjoyable week. Best as possible. And without further ado, let's get into our weekly portion. So this weekly portion is known as Chayei Sarah, the life of Sarah, Abraham's wife. However, the this week's portion and the opening few verses are actually specifically dealing with her death. And so it's quite curious why we're calling it the life of Sarah when we're focusing on her death. Now, there's a wordplay going on over here in Hebrew for sure, and potentially also in English. In Genesis 23:1, we talk about how Sarah's lifetime, the span of Sarah's life, they sort of repeat each other. And in Hebrew, it's called Shanei Sarah, which could again mean her lifespan, but also in Hebrew means two. So, and there are sages that allude to this, that it appears that we're being told over here about two different uh, uh, life stories. There's the life that she had up until this point, and there's another life that Sarah has, which only gets activated once she passes. And we should look at Sarah as someone who has always portrayed the guardian of the sanctity of the land of Israel. And she zealously guarded the right of the people to the land. You could also see in the previous portion in Genesis 21:10 when she talks about Ishmael, so he should not inherit with my son, with Isaac. So it's very important for her that God's prophecy and the inheritance of the land is focused on Isaac. We could also see that through Sarah in this portion, it's the first establishment of like a foothold uh, in the initial connection to the land. And we could see that Abraham buys this piece of land, and her death forces Abraham to buy this piece of land and bury her over here. And this begins the connection of the land to Israel, which we could also call the life of Sarah. And this is part two of her life. Uh, it's also a unique form of life because we could see that anyone who knows from our past civilizations, one who knows how to respect and honor the graves of their ancestors, also knows how to draw life from them, knows how to learn those lessons. As they say, Maaseh avot siman lebanim. The actions of our patriarchs and the forefathers are these symbolically run through us until this day, and we have to recognize and see these fractal patterns and these connections to our patriarchs. It's also surprising that the position, the possession of the land in Israel is a burial plot and not a field. A field would seem a lot more appropriate if we want to be talking about someone's life, right? There's growth. However, in the burial plot, you're lying still. But here too, it's stressing the point that the connection of the land of Israel is intrinsic, and it's not dependent on the actions of the sons of Isaac. To they might transgress and get removed from the land for a period of time, but ultimately these uh, uh, no action they could do or decision they could do could nullify that connection to the land that God has granted them. Uh, I think we could also see that there's a theological revelation here as well. Up until they get to the land, God, Abraham's relationship with God, as we see in Genesis 24:7, is the Lord God of heaven, and that's how his relationship with God is the God that's up there. However, once they enter the land, he says in Genesis 24:3, the Lord God of heaven and God of earth. And we see that this new theological invention emerges over here, which is only once they're in the land do they realize that this connection runs all the way from the top down to the bottom and then back up again. And this is where you could potentially say you could see this change happening. I'd also note that specifically regarding to her death, and this is a side note, my father always, as being a, a a very serious Freudian, we have the Oedipus complex, and we have this drive, obviously, of the child, his hidden love for one's mother, and he wants to overcome his father and then win back his mother. I think you could see in our story over here where uh, Sarah is dying, part of the 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 rabbi suggested this is because of her hearing about what happened to her son Isaac with the sacrifice, and she dies. But you could see over here it's sort of a flip, which is Isaac is not pursuing the mother, rather he is listening to the father. It's representing the moral triumph over one's nature. Isaac is his ability to overcome his natural instincts. However, when he comes back, he finds Rebecca, and that's the first time he goes visits his mother, as we see in Genesis 24. Genesis 24. Uh, but by doing that, by coming back to the tent of his mother with his wife through Rebecca, he's rediscovering his mother through his wife in a more um, natural and healthier way. So he still manages to maintain that reverence and triumph over nature, but then coming back and respecting nature again. Um, in these times, as I'm trying to end these portions, these little sessions, while I have a claim and stake to the land, um, we must recognize how we need to overcome our nature for revenge and for fighting. And while there's a time and place for all things, we should try to realize how we want to reconcile and ultimately move together moving forward. So, Shabbat Shalom. May you all have a fantastic weekend.